Hello everybody, I hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome back to my channel. One of the main reasons why I love having social media and letting you guys follow me on all of them is so that we can have like direct contact. You can give me feedback from latest content and you can give me recommendations for latest content, because at the end of the day you are the guys watching the things I put out there, so it would make sense if I was to ask you what it was you wanted to see. So last night I asked on Twitter what you guys wanted to watch today and you said storytime video please. Storytime videos seem to be still a hype. People seem to be making them and loving them, so I had to have a real good think though, because some of the things that happen to you, it's hard to express in a story that is relatively interesting when you know the person listening didn't experience it themselves, so you need to make sure they get in the zone and you need to be really good at telling stories, which I'm not always because I ramble way too much. Which was when I reminded myself about one of my favourite stories to exist ever. You can tell a story is a good one when there's a newspaper article on it, but I'm not going to read that to you yet. I had to have a good hunt for it though, it took me ages, and I want to tell you the story of not my own, it was a story of my late nan, my dad's mother, who unfortunately isn't with us anymore. I believe she was 97 years old when she passed away, but she was the most incredible person I have ever met, ever will probably meet, and just I feel blessed to know that she was part of my family because she is that inspiring as a person. Nobody had one single bad thing to say about this woman. I'm not just saying that because she's my nan, like everyone loves their nan. She was just generally a really nice person, and people always say to me, how are you so positive? Why are you so happy? Like, how do you do it? You think I'm that way? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I don't put on camera, but she was it through and through. Like, she was it. She didn't even sit in front of a camera and be happy and positive for people. She was just happy and positive, a proper happy-go-lucky lady, and you knew you were going to come out of her home feeling happy because she had that frame of mind and mentality of somebody who realized that yeah, sometimes life can be a little bit crap and it can wear you out and wear you down, but she always got back up again. She always realized the beauty in things, and she always told and reminded people about it. When I was young I thought it was nice she was saying it, but the older I get I'm thinking how somebody at that age and who had been through so much stuff can still think that way. It's super inspiring. But I'm kind of going off topic by talking about my nan. So she used to live in Brighton, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with Brighton, but right beside the place she lived was a park called Queen's Park, and it's still there. I haven't been for a while, but every time I go I think of this story and I think of my nan because we used to go there together. Really beautiful park, and it had a pond there. Now this was back in 1989, and that was a year after her husband had actually passed away. I never met him, unfortunately. He was probably a lovely man considering he was married to this angel, but he had passed away a year before. Now one of the last things that she had of his was a wedding ring because she had recently lost her engagement ring. So one day, I'm not sure I think she was on her own, but she was at the Queen's Park feeding the ducks bread, as you do. I think she may have lost a bit of weight during this time because like sad things happen, bad things happen in life, and eating habits change. So as she was throwing a bit of bread into the pond, I believe her wedding ring had slipped off her finger, flew with the bread, and plop into the pond that she was feeding the ducks with. And this is a big ass pond. Can you imagine that feeling, especially if you are remembering your late husband at this point in time because it was the same time last year that he had passed away? Like, your heart would just sink. Naturally, as anyone would, she got a little upset and she was on her own, and there wasn't really much she could do at her age particular as well, and probably started to have a little cry by the pond, as you would. Little upset lady crying by a pond in Queen's Park, feeling rather devastated, when two guys happened to come along. They're passing by and their names were Mark Heightley and Peter Lehany. You guys know I can't pronounce names for anything. 14 years old these boys were, and they were walking past this lady who seemed upset, and in the words of Mark, the little boy, she looked quite upset, and he thought that as she was quite old he should probably help. Isn't that the cutest? So they asked what was wrong, and she had said, my wedding ring, it's fallen into the pond. It was my husband's, he's just passed away. It's the last I really have of him and I don't know what to do. So they were like, whereabouts did it fall? And she just like gestured, oh, just around there or something. It doesn't matter type of thing. My nan, like I said, is the type of person, I mean, she was obviously upset, but she was probably just like, you know what, doesn't matter. Next minute, these two boys start pulling up their trouser legs, taking off their socks and shoes, and they're like, we'll find it. They step into this pond with a bucket and start scooping out water around the area that she said it may have fallen. They are just scooping buckets and buckets of water for ages with my nan, who's just sat sat there probably thinking, what is going on? These two youngsters who don't even know who my nan was is really determined to find this ring. I mean, some people might be a bit sketchy, like, why are they so determined to find this ring? So 1 hour passes by, they're still scooping buckets of water, they can't find it. Probably getting a bit muddy at this point. I mean, it's a park's pond, like, they're not the cleanest things, but they don't care. They're still at it. Another hour passes. 2 hours have gone by. It's probably getting a bit dark now. Knowing my nan, she's probably saying, doesn't matter, it'll be fine. I'm gonna go home and I'll get over it. So she'd mentioned her name, she'd mentioned whereabouts she lived, kind of thought nothing of it, and she went home. 1 hour later, there's a knock on her flat door. She opens it up and she cannot believe her eyes when she sees two boys stood there, soaking wet from head to toe, holding this gold band with a big smile on their faces, literally like this. She had said she couldn't believe it and she just started to cry and cry and cry. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because can you imagine, like, just accepting the fact you're not going to see that again? And my nan was always the really, like, theatrical type. She was so clear and open with her emotions and she was just so enthusiastic. I can imagine how she had greeted these guys. I mean, she would greet me, her and granddaughter, in the nicest way ever, all the time. She would give one of those hugs where you feel like your head's going to pop and explode. It's like an ongoing joke in my family. We'd say, give me a nanny dolly hug, because it would always be like and even up to like the last few moments I remember of when she was alive and she wasn't particularly well, she was pretty badly ill, she would still have this strength in her. Like, she would grab your hand and like really tightly hold it and just let you know that she's still her and she's still nanny dolly, and regardless of how ill and how unwell she was. You can just imagine her grabbing hold of these guys and being like, oh my god, come here you, type of thing. And she remembers seeing these two boys who were just drenched and was like, come on in, clean yourself off, you crazy fools. I remember her saying that she was literally running like a lunatic around the house trying to think of something that she could give them as like a thank you gesture, throwing money in the air thinking, oh, what can I do to thank you, God bless your little souls. And they were like, no, don't be silly. And then so obviously a nan, being a nan, heads into the kitchen like, what do I cook for these boys? And I believe she might have warmed up some mince pies and just gave them those to eat because they were freezing cold. I mean, ponds aren't warm. She was probably making sure they were okay and like not going to be ill for a good week after what they'd done. And they weren't accepting anything that she was offering them as a thank you gesture. So she wanted to let people know the kindness and loveliness that she saw in these two guys by writing to the local paper, which is in this photo album here, from the 13th of April, so it wasn't really the warm season yet, 1989. Young pals wade in to the rescue for Dorothy. And there's a really nice picture of them too with her. Wouldn't it be cool if possibly anyone who knows these two guys who lived in Brighton at this point in their life could show them this video? Like, wouldn't that be amazing? It's a small world, so who knows? I've done a little bit of research online to try and find these two. I couldn't find them on Facebook because I was going to message them, give them a bit of a nudge. It says, schoolboys Mark Heightley and Peter Lenny brought a huge smile back to the face of widow Dorothy James when they found her treasured wedding ring. The two 14-year-olds waded into the rescue when Mrs. James lost the ring in a pond at Queen's Park. They spent 3 hours up to their knees in water searching for the gold band. Mrs. James, 72 years old at the time, said, bless their hearts, they spent 2 hours with me scooping buckets of water out. I went home in the end, but they turned up soaking on my doorstep later with the ring. I couldn't believe it. I started to cry. He said she looked upset, so I thought as she was quite old I should help her. Mrs. James was full of praise for the boys. She said, so many people say youngsters are bad. These two boys didn't know me, but they never hesitated about helping. Stories like this, I think, are worth sharing more because they can inspire you and they can motivate you to do the small things that might really affect somebody, because these kids who did this thing which may have just seemed like nothing, and they kept saying, no, it's all right, and just had this attitude of, we can find that, we can do that, we jumped right in and got into a pond, what have we got to lose? Gave my nan this story which she loved to tell every time I saw her. That was like 20 or so years later. She was still remembering these guys and just thinking how great they were, and they probably don't know, they have no idea how much they affected this woman's life. And I feel grateful for them too, because I know that she was such a lovely person. Maybe now you've heard this story, think about it yourself. If there's any time or place when you realise guys, someone might be in trouble or stuck or sad or needs help, if there's anything you can do, just remember that you don't know how much what you're able to do. You don't know your power. You don't know how much you are able to do for somebody and how much that is going to affect their lives, change somebody's day, week, month, year, 20 years in my nan's case. Considering it's one of my favourite stories to tell, I would like you guys to let me know in the comment section your favourite story to tell. It doesn't matter if it's a long ass comment or it's just a short condensed down version. I would so love to hear them. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I really hope you enjoyed this. I'm really worried it's going to be one of those cases where it's only cool for me to say the story and you're all sat there like, that wasn't that great. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be in about 2 days time. All my social media is down there, so you're free to join me in all of them and we can chinwag. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already to be notified every time I make a new video, and I'll see you in 2. Mwah!